Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be on this planet of ours. Welcome to Emergency Management Associates, coming to you from the Area Command 392 miles west of Kitty Hawk Beach, North Carolina. As we have been doing for quite some time, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance and the United States National Anthem. I wish we could do this for every country. Will everybody please rise?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now would you make welcome, straight from Washington, D.C., the United States Army Corps Quartet.
Yeah.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Oh yeah! Come on, folks, let them know it.
America's finest, the United States Army Barbershop Quartet, coming to us from the Barbershop Quartet Convention in 2015. The Barbershop Quartet Convention host gave us a Pledge of Allegiance, and we thank them all for that. We thank all of our military here in the United States and worldwide, and also our allies worldwide, for all that they do for us and for their countries and for the world. God bless you, men and women. May you all return home to your families in safety after your tours of duty end. God bless you all, and thank you all for your service. We appreciate it greatly. Folks, we have a huge program that we need to talk about tonight. I want to first talk about a huge earthquake. A huge earthquake that happened today, and it happened over in Indonesia, in Java, just off the northern coast of Java, Indonesia. It's a special quake. It is a very special quake tonight. I want to show you this because this is so very important. I don't think we've ever had this large a quake in this area, and it was a deep one. It was a very deep one. 688 kilometers deep. 688 kilometers deep. This is a 7.0 earthquake. it shows one aftershock, which is bull. There's about 40 aftershocks right now that I've cataloged, and there's more coming. This is a major earthquake, and it may be even larger than what they had here. This aftershock here is a 5.4. This is a 5.4 aftershock, and like I said, I believe I've cataloged at least 40 aftershocks, not just one. Like I said, this, folks, is a very deep earthquake, a 7.0 earthquake. Now, they have reduced the depth on this, okay? They've taken it from 688 kilometers deep down to 594 kilometers deep, okay? That you can take to the bank. That you can take to the bank because they put it out there. I believe this was a much larger earthquake, and I'm going to show you why in just a second. I thought I already had this information out here, and I'm going to pull it up right now. If you'll just bear with me just a quick second here. Okay, there it is, folks, right here. Okay, this was at least 688 kilometers deep. Go down here, and this is 1, 2, 3 columns from the right. Go left, 3 columns from the right. You come over at the bottom, it says 700 kilometers. Go up to 685. 685. Okay, do you all see where that is? That's a 1.37 we have to add to this. A 1.37 magnitude earthquake, magnitude that we're going to add to this. Like I said, they have it as a 7.0 earthquake. This means this deep earthquake will propagate an 8.37 magnitude earthquake. An 8.37 magnitude earthquake, folks. That's huge. This is huge. Okay? This earthquake could go north. This propagation could go north. It could go south over into Antarctica. Antarctica's had large earthquakes before. Major earthquakes such as this. Antarctica's had a 9.0 2 years ago. We cataloged it there. USGS denied it happened until 2 months later after a flight flew over Antarctica, and guess what they found? A 12-mile-long fissure that had opened up in the ice as a result of that 9.0 earthquake. Guess what? We're going to have a huge earthquake, a major earthquake. Like I said, this is bigger than ever. This is the deepest earthquake that we've had that was a major earthquake in this region. Before these earthquakes were shallow. This is a deep earthquake, guys. I hope you understand the importance of what I'm saying here. Again, this propagated earthquake could go north. It could go into northern Indonesia. It could go up into the Philippines. It could go into Taiwan. It could go up into Japan. It could go up into Kamchatka Peninsula. It could go up into the Aleutian Islands and up into Alaska. It could go directly there, or it could go directly through fault lines. It can go east into South America. Chile, Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia. It could go into Central America. It could go direct into the United States of America and or Canada. Do you understand what I'm saying? I know everybody in the chat room is saying hi to everybody. But do you folks really realize what this means? Cowboy Roy Rogers is in the chat. Antarctica received an 8 magnitude. Don't be surprised if global warming is blamed for ice sheets breaking up into the ocean instead of a very large earthquake. He's right. These communists that are in power throughout the world and in the United States of America want us to believe it's global warming. There is no such animal. There is no such animal. This is important, guys. I'm showing you the statistics right now. This is proof positive of what we're talking about. This is proof positive of what we've been talking about all along. This is important. This is very, very, very important. Now, I want to talk to you about something else. We talked about it last night, and I believe we talked about it the night before. There was a gas explosion in Yellowstone. There was a huge explosion in Yellowstone. And we've got the lowdown on it from KIFI television in Pocatello, Idaho. This is the report.
We begin tonight with an update on a developing story. Good evening, I'm Todd Coons. We are learning the cause of a blast at the One Horse Motel in West Yellowstone, Montana. The police department there telling us tonight it was a gas explosion. People in the town that we've talked with say that they could feel buildings shake and then heard the blast. The motel was closed for the winter season and there are no injuries. Dunraven Street from Highway 20 to Gibbon is closed right now. Authorities are still on scene as the investigation continues. Check our website, localnews8.com, or take our app with you for the latest updates.
Okay, that's a report. It was a gas explosion, a natural gas explosion. We've heard so many stories on what people thought it was. It had nothing to do with the volcano. This was a natural gas explosion in Yellowstone. Okay? I've gone deep into the story. I know what's going on. I know exactly what's going on. Now, folks, there is a lot more to say about what we're going to do tonight. Okay? First off, I want to echo what people have read about San Diego and in the Cascadia subduction zone. Everyone in Southern California, you need to listen and listen now. If you have not talked to me or have not listened to me before, you need to listen up right now. And I'm not talking about disrespect. I'm not disrespecting anybody. This is in the form of an emergency message. This is in the form of an emergency message to everybody in Southern California, including San Diego County. You all are about to get hit with a major earthquake. You all are about to get hit with a major earthquake. It's coming. I have verified it. The scientists are talking about it. If you have not already heard, you need to learn right now what is going on. During the past 2 weeks, we have shown you seismograms. You can go back over our programs the last 2 weeks. We have shown you seismograms in Southern California that have shown an extreme buildup of seismic energy all throughout the Los Angeles Basin into San Diego and down into Imperial County, California, in and around and south of the Salton Sea. There is a major earthquake incoming. You all need to prepare. You all need to prepare and prepare immediately. And I'm talking the following. and we're going to talk about emergency planning in the next 20 minutes. But I want to first tell all of you in California, and for that matter, also those of you that live in California, the entire length of California, up into Oregon and Washington, and I will explain Oregon and Washington in just a minute. I have pictures of what's going on off the coast of Oregon and Washington. But you folks in California, Southern California in particular, you need to prepare for an incoming major earthquake to the tune of a 6.5 to an 8.0 hitting Southern California very, very soon. I want to warn you right now that it is incoming. We have plenty of scientific information to prove it, and I've given that to you. The first thing you need to do is prepare your families. Make sure you tell your brothers and sisters, your aunts and uncles, what is going on. You need to show them parts of my program where I've shown you seismograms showing the increase in seismic activity throughout the Los Angeles basin and out into the desert. Okay? The second thing you need to do, you need to immediately, if not sooner, start writing an emergency preparedness plan. We're going to be talking about emergency preparedness planning tonight. You need to write an emergency preparedness plan immediately, covering all kinds of scenarios, so you and your family can be prepared to before and to get through it and get out the other side of the emergency. Second thing you need to do, you need to make sure you have food in your home. You need to have an emergency preparedness supply of food. Food storage. You need to have pantries full of food. Not stuff that can spoil naturally over a very short time. You need to have food in your pantry. You need to have food in your preparedness supplies. I'm talking emergency food storage, and I'm talking about preparedness supplies. You need to have all kinds of jackets and clothes to wear given any kind of climate change that you're going to experience over the next even 30 days to 6 or 8 months. This earthquake is inbound. I don't know when it's going to hit. I can't answer that. No scientist can give you that data. We don't know. But it is incoming, and scientists have even said exactly that. They're mimicking me. They're giving you the same information that I'm giving you now. You need to get prepared, and get prepared immediately. Have jackets, clothing, and shoes. Not in the form of high heels or dress shoes. You need to have well-worn shoes that will not give you calluses or eruptions on your skin or your feet. You need to have good, solid shoes, soles on the shoes and or boots, in case you have to go rock climbing, skinnying over debris. You need to have short and long sleeve shirts. You need to have hats. You need to have all kinds of clothing so you can get through this disaster, and that's exactly what it's going to be. You need to have emergency supplies such as first aid kits and water. Water to drink and water to bathe with and water to flush toilets, if you can flush them at all. If you can't flush a toilet, you need to go to Home Depot immediately in case your sewer system does not work. You need to go get a 5-gallon bucket and a plastic toilet lid, and get some plastic garbage bags, black in color, and maybe some kitty litter and a huge supply of sawdust. When you do your business in the plastic bag that's inside the Home Depot bucket, you sprinkle some sawdust on it, or kitty litter. And once that plastic bag starts to fill up, tie a knot in it and make sure you put it out to the garbage so it's not going to spread disease. And then put your toilet back together again. You need to have a way to wash your body, wash your hands. Make sure you have antibacterial soap or soap of any kind at this point in time. You need to have food, water, and other emergency supplies, especially a first aid kit. In the past years, I've shown you my first aid kit, but my first aid kit is very well equipped. I used to be an EMT police officer, my gosh. I want to make sure you are ready. This is going to happen. Make sure you have water to drink, water to bathe with, water to flush toilets, water to cook with. Everything that I'm going to discuss tonight is going to happen, and you need to be prepared. Like I said, we're going to talk about emergency planning in just a few short minutes. Folks, if you have not already, make sure you have notified your family, your friends, and anybody else that you can think of how important this program is and get them in to listen to this. If they can't do it right now, they need, or you need, to make sure they're notified very soon about this program and have them watch it, or invite them over to your home to look at it. This is important. This is very important. Now, as for Oregon and Washington, I want to make it very plain of what I'm talking about. Some of you already know what I'm about to talk about. Okay? We've talked about the Cascadia megathrust earthquake in the past. Okay? What I'm showing you now is a slide involving the Cascadia megathrust earthquake. The Cascadia Trench is here. I've got it on the slide. The Cascadia subduction zone runs from all the way up into British Columbia, Canada, just south of Queen Charlotte Island. It runs south west and past Vancouver Island. It runs past Washington and Oregon. It goes into Northern California. Northern California. Now, I'm about to show you another slide that I hope you're going to appreciate. This is very, very, very important. I cannot stress how important it is. I want to make sure that everybody is on board with this. I want to make sure that everybody understands this. We've talked about the Cascadia subduction zone for 3.5 years now. We've told you what it could do. Now we have an added wrinkle into the whole thing. We have an added wrinkle into the whole thing. I want to show you this next slide. Let me enlarge it a little bit. Like I said, the Cascadia subduction zone runs into Northern California. I'm going to spell it out for you. Down at the bottom left of this slide, let me enlarge it even more so you understand this, and I can always lower this slide to show you the rest of it. The Cascadia subduction zone runs along the coast of Canada all the way down the coast to Northern California. Okay? it goes all the way down to what they call the Gorda Escarpment. You see that area that points down to the corner of the area near the shore of Northern California? That's where the Gorda Escarpment meets the Cascadia subduction zone. It's also where something else meets. It's called the San Andreas Fault. The San Andreas Fault. And you can just barely see it in this slide here at the bottom of the slide, the bottom center of this slide. You see where it says Gorda Plate. That seismic zone that runs straight west from the shore of California, that is the Gorda Escarpment. Where it meets the Cascadia subduction zone and the San Andreas Fault, that's called the Triple Junction. The Triple Junction. What we're talking about tonight, I want to make this clear. What we're talking about tonight is happening out near the Juan de Fuca Fault Zone. The Juan de Fuca Fault Zone is over in the center left of this slide that you see right now. The Juan de Fuca Fault Zone. Scientists have now found a warm water spot at the bottom of the ocean at the Juan de Fuca Fault Zone, a 600-mile long fault zone. There is a warm water coming up from the bottom of the sea floor. Now I'm going to explore this here with you. I want to make very sure that you understand.
Comprehensive Preparedness Guide, CPG 101 provides Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, guidance on the fundamentals of planning and developing emergency operations plans, EOP. CPG 101 shows that EOPs are connected to planning efforts in the areas of prevention, protection, response, recovery, and mitigation.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I'll get to that in a minute. Okay? We'll get back to that. Getting back to what we're talking about here on the Juan de Fuca Fault. There is a warm water spring that's coming up from the seafloor. Now, experts have already said that we should be on red alert for a mega earthquake off the U.S. coast after they discovered a crack in a 600-mile long fault line at the bottom of the Pacific, along the Juan de Fuca fault line. They said the hole may be leaking fault lubricant that reduces stress on the two plates. Now, with that said, I want to make it completely clear about what we're talking about. Okay? We've talked about this also. Excuse me, I'm kind of sweating because of medication that I'm taking for my cancer. Or should I say, my cancer treatment. What we're looking at, folks, is when the plates heat up. When the plates heat up, all the garbage that's on the seafloor, all the biological material that's on the seafloor, all the sand, the dirt, all the stuff, the water and everything heats up along the plates. And when it does, it provides a lubricant like grease or oil. And when that lubricant reaches a certain temperature, that it becomes very greasy like substance. And that's when the faults can slip and cause a major earthquake. Okay? We've talked about this before. The Pacific Plate, my right hand right here is the North American Plate, the United States and Canada. My right hand here is the North American Plate. My left hand here is the Pacific Plate. It's taking a deep dive under the North American Plate. Where those two plates meet is what we're talking about. Okay, where those two plates meet is where we're talking about now. So you completely understand what we're saying. This is very important. The fault here that we're showing could unleash a magnitude 9 earthquake and even upwards of a 10 earthquake, a magnitude 10 earthquake in the Pacific Northwest. Scientists fear a hole in a 600-mile-long fault line in the Pacific could trigger a catastrophic earthquake that would decimate cities along the northwestern United States and Canada. We cannot forget Canada as well. The stress of that earthquake being unleashed is not just going to be felt along the coast of Washington and Oregon. It's going to be felt upwards in Canada, northward into Canada. Like I told you before, that Cascadia subduction zone reaches up to just south of Queen Charlotte Island. And then there's another fault that goes north into Alaska. The entire west coast of Canada and the United States is going to be affected. And I'm going to explain why that the entire coast of California is going to be involved in just a few minutes. Okay? Like I said, this fault line could unleash a magnitude 9 to 10 earthquake in the Pacific Northwest that will be felt all the way down into Mexico, even northern Mexico, and all the way up into Canada and possibly Alaska as well. It can decimate cities along the coast of Canada and the United States. This hole that is spewing hot liquid sits 50 miles off the shoreline of Oregon on the boundaries of the dipping fault known as the Cascadia subduction zone, which spans from northern California into Canada. This geological feature is capable of unleashing, like I said, a magnitude 9 to 10 magnitude earthquake in the Pacific Northwest, and the hole could be the fuel that it needs. This leak was first discovered in 2015, but a new analysis led by the University of Oregon suggests that the chemically distinct liquid is fault lubricant. Fault lubricant, like I described, the biological material that's at the seabed there, at the fault line, and all the other material that's there has heated up. And that's what you see springing up out of the seafloor. Okay? This liquid allows plates to move smoothly, but without it, stress can build up to create a damaging earthquake, researchers have said. The team named the hole, which they described as a hot spring called Pythias Oasis, Pythias, Pythias Oasis, after the ancient Greek oracle who prophesied with the assistance of mind-altering gases rising from a hot spring. It seems equally hallucinatory to find a spring of low salinity in a very salty water, high temperature, mineral-rich water flowing from the seafloor some 3,280 feet below the surface off the coast of Oregon. A robotic diver uncovered the hole in a 2015 survey when sonar images captured the bubbles rising from the seafloor. At first, they thought these bubbles were methane. They are not methane. Data now shows the liquid from the spring was coming from the plate boundary line and appears warmer than the surrounding area. Co-author Evan Solomon from the University of Washington, who's the assistant professor of oceanography who studies seafloor geology, said in a statement, quote, "They explored this in that direction, and what they saw was not just methane bubbles, but water coming out of the seafloor like a fire hose. That's something I've never seen, and to my knowledge has not been ever observed before. Observations later have determined the leaking fluid was 16 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the surrounding seafloor, the surrounding seawater, and was coming directly from the Cascadia megathrust seismic area, where temperatures are an estimated 300 to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Let me repeat that again. This water was coming from a hole that was directly from the Cascadia megathrust earthquake area, where temperatures are an estimated 300 to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Loss of fluid from the offshore megathrust interface through these strike-slip faults that we talked about last night is important, because it lowers the fluid pressure between the sediment particles, the biological materials, and hence increases the friction between the oceanic and the continental plates. The Cascadia megathrust spans, and I'm talking about the Cascadia megathrust seismic zone, spans several metropolitan areas, including Seattle and Portland, Oregon, but it also touches Northern California and Vancouver Island and upwards of Queen Charlotte Island in Canada. Professor Solomon compared the megathrust fault zone to an air hockey table. Please pay attention here. If the fluid pressure is high, it's like the air is turned on, meaning there's less friction and the two plates can slip. If the fluid pressure is lower, the two plates will lock, and that's when stress can build up. That's how he compared it to a hockey table. If the fluid pressure is high, it's like the air is turned on, meaning there's less friction and the two plates can slip. If the fluid pressure is lower, the two plates will lock up, and that's when stress can build up. The Cascadia subduction zone that runs from just south of Queen Charlotte Island to the north and all the way down to Northern California is a region where two tectonic plates collide, as well as the Cascadia subduction zone to the south. It's called the triple junction. The triple junction. We've talked about this before. The Juan de Fuca fault is a small oceanic plate that is being driven under the American plate atop the continental United States. Let me go back to that previous slide. Right here. Please look at this while I explain it to you. This is very important. The Cascadia subduction zone that you see on the right there, just to the left of where it says North American Plate. The Cascadia subduction zone is a region where two tectonic plates collide, and on the southern end they meet at the San Andreas Fault, the triple junction. The Juan de Fuca Fault, a small oceanic plate, is driven under the North American Plate atop the continental United States, as well as the Pacific Plate that I talked to you about a few minutes ago. The entire west coast of the United States and Canada are subduction zones. The entire west coast of the United States and Canada are subduction zones. Subduction systems where one tectonic plate slides over another. The North American plate over the Pacific plate and the Juan de Fuca plate. Where one tectonic plate slides over another can produce the world's largest known earthquakes. A prime example is the 2011 Tohoku earthquake that rocked Japan, 9.0 earthquake, killing an estimated 20,000 people. 20,000 people died in that earthquake. Cascadia is seismically quiet compared to other subduction zones, but it's not completely inactive. We've seen many earthquakes on this fault zone. We've seen many earthquakes to the west in Seattle area. We talked about those in the past as well. Research indicates that the fault ruptured a magnitude 9 event in 1700 AD. Roughly 30 times more powerful than the largest predicted San Andreas quake. 30 times more powerful than the largest predicted San Andreas earthquake. Professor Solomon said that the fluid release from the fault zone is the first known sign of its kind. A significant fluid leak off of central Oregon could explain why the entire northern portion of the Cascadia subduction zone off the coast of Washington is believed to be strongly locked or coupled than the southern section of the coast of Oregon, according to experts, including Chris Goldfinger, professor of geology over at the University of Oregon. Now let me stop here and talk about Chris Goldfinger for a minute. 2.5 years ago, December 23rd, Chris Goldfinger held a symposium in San Francisco where he said that the Cascadia earthquake, the Cascadia megathrust earthquake, resulting in anywhere from an 8.0 to a 10.0 earthquake, could trigger the San Andreas fault. He said it could trigger the San Andreas fault. What did I tell you about this fault zone? The Cascadia subduction zone runs right down into that triple junction where the San Andreas fault links to. So it could indeed trigger the San Andreas fault. And when it does, folks, what do you think is going to happen? The population centers in California. We're talking about San Francisco, Santa Barbara, the entire area of Los Angeles and inland, and San Diego and inland will be affected. Will be affected. Observations have determined that the leaking fluid here at the Juan de Fuca fault area was 16 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the surrounding seawater and coming directly from the Cascadia megathrust subduction area. Solomon figures this. He theorizes that similar springs could lurk nearby but are harder to detect from the ocean surface. They're harder to detect from the ocean surface. A significant fluid leak off central Oregon could explain why the northern portion of the Cascadia subduction zone off the coast of Washington is believed more strongly locked or coupled than the southern section off the coast of Oregon. Co-author Deborah Kelly, a University of Washington professor of oceanography, said, quote, Pythias Oasis provides a rare window into processes acting deep in the seafloor, and its chemistry suggests this fluid comes from the nearby plate boundary. This suggests that the nearby faults regulate pressure and megathrust slip behavior along the central Cascadia subduction coast. This suggests that the nearby faults regulate fluid pressure and megathrust slip behavior along the central Cascadia subduction zone. This is very important news. This is why scientists have issued a red alert for this area, for this entire area, from Canada to the north over towards Queen Charlotte Island and all the way down here. Now, what I talked about in San Diego is different from this. However, let me make it perfectly clear. The entire west coast of California is also a subduction zone. It has its own characteristics. But this Cascadia megathrust earthquake could activate the San Andreas Fault, like I said a few minutes ago, which could mean a lot of things. As I stated before, this could activate the San Andreas Fault. What does that mean to you? What does that mean to all of us? What does it mean? Does it mean we can just sit around and ignore it? Does it mean we need to think seriously about preparations and getting our acts together so that we can prepare for this cataclysmic event? I think so. No, I know so. I have studied this for quite a few years. This is not my first rodeo. We've talked about it on the air for 3.5 years now. Like I said, it's not the first rodeo. We all need to be aware of what's going on. I've been talking about it for a long time. We've been talking about emergency preparedness for quite some time. Folks, we need to get busy. I do not believe that we need to walk away from this and ignore it. We need to get busy. We need to prepare. If we don't prepare, we're going to be crud out of luck and up the creek without a paddle. Up the creek without a paddle. This is a picture of the San Andreas Fault out in the desert area of California. Look how it breaks. This fault alone can break or make us. If we're not ready, I'm sorry to say that if you saw the San Andreas earthquake that Mr. Dwayne Johnson was in, it's very close to that. I know that they had their own cinematic, shall I say, mind-boggling cinematic pictures or videos that they put together for it. But they had scientists from the USGS, from Caltech, and other agencies contributing to it as well. This could happen. The storyline is not necessarily fact. It's fiction. But it could happen. Especially if and when, I shouldn't even say if, when the Cascadia megathrust earthquake hits. This is serious. I do not want people to ignore this. I don't want people to ignore this. Highway Runner says zipper. And that's what it would be like, having the Cascadia megathrust earthquake hit and it having a zippering effect all the way down the west coast. All the way down the west coast. Yes, folks, it could happen. Now, I want to show you a map here. And I often use this map on this program, and I wish there was something else to use because I do not like the agency. I despise this agency that provides this map. And maybe that's why they despise me. And that's okay. I really don't care what they think of me. They can lie to us, and they have. They lie to us frequently. What I'm showing you on this map here, up on the north side of Canada here, this is Queen Charlotte Island. Queen Charlotte Island. You can see the Cascadia megathrust earthquake zone going all the way up here. And it stretches southward past on the west side of Vancouver Island, British Columbia. It continues south down the coast of Washington, past Oregon, and down here to Northern California, where it meets up with the Gorda Escarpment. And you notice an earthquake over here that hit today. This earthquake hit at 3:42 a.m. this morning Eastern Time. This was a 2.9 magnitude earthquake on what they call the Blanco fracture zone. Let me enlarge this picture a bit. This is the Blanco fracture zone. It runs from the southeast to the northwest. It meets up with the Juan de Fuca Fault here. That Juan de Fuca Fault reaches up all the way up here to Queen Charlotte Island, where it meets up again with the Cascadia subduction zone. We've had numerous earthquakes in this same area. 2 days ago, folks, we had a 6.2 magnitude earthquake right here between the Cascadia subduction zone and the Juan de Fuca Fault. This 6.2 magnitude earthquake is what they consider a very strong earthquake. Two years ago, we had 3 7.0 earthquakes Christmas Eve night, December 24th. The first about 11 p.m. at night, Christmas Eve. We subsequently had 2 more here. One of my friends and I were on the phone together praying that this was not going to be the Cascadia megathrust earthquake. 3 7.0 major earthquakes right here in this region. Another 6.2 2 days ago. We've had numerous other earthquakes here as well. Small, moderate 4.0 and larger. We've had 5.0s in this area as well. We've had 3.0, 3.9 small earthquakes, and we've had moderate earthquakes in this region as well. But we have not had another 7.0 earthquake since. It can happen again. And honestly, after that 6.2 here, 2 days ago, I've been watching this like a hawk. I've been watching all agencies to make sure I'm getting the best information possible, because I don't trust any one agency from blocking the information and not posting it. That's what they do. Too many lives depend on making sure we get the good information, no matter where we get it from. This is a big deal. Highway Runner says, but after it hits, it could go trigger the rest of the United States, and it could. Now, let me take it a step further. When this earthquake hits, it's going to ring church bells on the East Coast. That seismic energy, folks, triggered a tsunami in 1700 when the last Cascadia megathrust earthquake hit. It triggered a tsunami that went all the way across the ocean to Japan. That's why we know exactly when this earthquake hit and what it did. We also have information from the American Indians about what they thought it was. They thought it was a great big large bird like a raven. That's what they thought it was. A mariner that was off the coast here, in this same area, thought that he saw either Mount Rainier or Glacier Peak erupting. I want to make it clear that everything that I've told you I know is going to happen. It's true. There is scientific evidence to back it. When this earthquake hits, it's going to decimate this immediate area, and it could decimate any other areas it goes to, going south and north. Let me give you a little more background on this. When this earthquake hits, it's going to be bigger than any earthquake that's ever been known by anybody that is alive today. Any buildings here are subject to the seismic waves and could be destroyed or knocked down. That includes large high-rises. That includes single-story buildings. That includes any homes and other buildings that are there. There are still buildings and homes all over this area that were built in the late 1800s and are not reinforced or remodeled. Those will fall. Large fissures are going to erupt in the earth. Bridges are going to be fallen. People that are on the bridges are going to go down with the bridges. Anything west of Interstate 5 will be destroyed. Anything west of Interstate 5 is going to be destroyed. And what is not destroyed in the earthquake? Within 15 or 20 minutes after the onslaught of the earthquake, there's going to be a tsunami. There will be a tsunami as high as anywhere from 50 feet to 150 feet high. And anything that the earthquake didn't destroy, the tsunami will. The tsunami will go well inland. Now, where the water goes between mountains or hills, the water will speed up, as physics has shown us it does. As the water goes around major buildings in Seattle or other places, the water going inland is going to speed up. That's going to cause more destruction, and it's going to go even further than if there had been no buildings or hills around. The only way anyone is going to escape any of this, if they can, is if they are on bicycle, motorcycle, or four-wheel drive vehicle. Any other vehicle will become impassable. The area will become impassable because either the bridges have dropped or there'll become great fissures that have opened up and won't be able to be passed unless you at least have a four-wheel drive vehicle. And even then, it may become impossible to get out of the area. I've been studying this an awful long time. I'm being completely honest with all of you. The water is going to go miles and miles inland. The current thinking is it could go 20, 25 miles inland, if not more. Towns and cities will be destroyed. Farms will be engulfed by the water. And anything there will not be edible. It'll be destroyed. I have done full-blown study together with a guy named Terry Rempel, who was a friend of mine. He wrote a paper. I've given you the information on this program. You can go back 30 days ago when I last covered it. And I'm going to cover it again, and I might do it tomorrow night. But what you need to know is this will happen. Shannon's saying, okay, so I'm 60 miles away from the Oregon coast. You might be all right. However, you're going to experience great shaking. Shannon is 60 miles away from the coast. You're still going to feel great shaking. And you may have your home destroyed. Animals and Humans in Disasters here in the chat saying, Michael, the best thing you can do is become a Red Cross disaster volunteer. Which sense of the gate, which side of the gate, I guess she's saying, which side of the gate do you want to be? They always need cooks. They always need mass care people. Doctors and nurses. EMTs and paramedics. They do. Space Potato is saying you couldn't pay me enough to be on the West Coast. That's one reason why I left a long time ago. I saw this coming, as well as the high prices and everything else that's happened in California. I saw it coming. I could no longer stay there. A lot of reasons drove me out of California and drove me out of Denver. All of you need to be aware of this. Space Potato says, I'm from California. I lived in California for 27 years. I think maybe even 28. It doesn't matter anymore. Highway Runner says, Ron, I think you have the people on the West Coast packing. I don't necessarily want them to pack. Yes, you could. All I am doing is repeating everything that I have been told and everything that I have read on the subject. Michael McKinney says, if I had the cash, I would leave Los Angeles. Michael, I know exactly what you're saying. I saved every cut and pick and dime I had to leave California. And I moved to Denver. Then I moved to Salt Lake. And now I'm on the East Coast. Well above the area that will get shook by a large earthquake. Where I would be near water's edge. I myself, I am over 1,200 feet above sea level, where I'm at. Not bad. Not bad. But You guys on the West Coast are vulnerable. Richard Smith says the East Coast is going to get some action too. They already have. I wish I'd been able to show you what's gone on the West Coast on Monday and Tuesday this week. There's been some 3.0 earthquakes here as well. They just don't want to tell us about it. They told us about a measly 1.8 tremor that hit here south of where I live. About 2 hours south of where I live. A 1.8 tremor. Well, guess what, folks? I have evidence that there was at least a 3.0, 3.5 north of me. Yes, that is a small earthquake. But they did not say a small earthquake. They did not announce it on the news either. USGS did not report it. I have evidence that it happened. And I have evidence that earthquakes of such magnitude also happened in Sumter, South Carolina, which is just east of Elgin and Lugoff, South Carolina, where they had earthquakes last year. Where they reported earthquakes last year. And there have been a lot of earthquakes since, and they continue to happen. The USGS does not tell anybody. I have shown you evidence of this on previous programs. Yes, the East Coast is getting whipped. Not bad yet. Yet. Why is the East Coast getting hammered? Why? Because, folks, I have said this before. Let me back this map out. Let me show you the East Coast of the United States. Out here is the Atlantic Ocean. The Atlantic Ocean, folks, is expanding like this. The Atlantic Ocean is expanding. And as it expands, it is pushing the North American continent, Canada, and the United States south-southwest. Today, USGS is showing a 2.6 earthquake over in Adams Center, New York. Over in Adams Center, New York, today. If I went searching, it wouldn't take me very long. If I went searching for more earthquakes, I will bet you $1 million that I would find 2s, 3s, and probably 4 moderate earthquakes up and down the entire coast of Canada and the United States. The east coast of Canada and the United States. I've seen it. It's happening even today. Guaranteed. What is that doing? As I explained earlier this week, this is where the pneumatic seismic zone is. The pressure that's being put on the east coast of the United States is putting pressure on the pneumatic fault. And I've shown you plenty of earthquakes here in Missouri and Arkansas that are 2.5, 3.5, and probably close to 4.0 earthquakes here on the pneumatic fault. But the East Coast is not the only place that's putting pressure on the pneumatic fault. Seismic energy is coming from here on the west coast of the United States, and that seismic energy is being pushed east, which puts additional pressure on the pneumatic fault. Yes, folks, up on the Blanco fracture zone here off the coast of Oregon, we had a 2.9, 3.0 earthquake, a small earthquake. 2.9 would be a minor earthquake. That's what USGS says it is. But any of you that know me, know for a fact that USGS downgrades earthquakes to a 0.9 below what the actual earthquake was. So this 2.9 may have been even a 3.0 or larger earthquake. That's what USGS does. We call it the 0.9 Society. The 0.9 Society is alive and well. Okay? Let me open up Southern California really quick for you. Just off the coast here. Just off the coast. Let me show you this. This is a 2.5 magnitude earthquake off the coast of California here. It's 29 kilometers or about 24 miles south of Lopez Point, California. Southwest of Lopez Point, California, a 2.5 minor earthquake. Over here, I've illuminated this earthquake here. This is also important. This is the earthquake capital of California. This is Parkfield, California. You notice this seismic zone, this earthquake fault? This is the San Andreas Fault. The San Andreas Fault. That is why this earthquake happened today. It was a 0.8 microquake. But they had a 2.9 and a 3.0 earthquake here just in the last week at Parkfield, California. Earthquake capital of California. Again, let me show you something here. Okay? The San Andreas Fault starts up here. It connects at the triple junction with the Cascadia subduction zone and the Gorda escarpment. It runs off the coast of California until it gets right here, just north of the San Francisco Bay. Then it goes back out to sea here. It goes out to sea, and just barely north of the San Francisco Bay area, it starts heading inland again. It heads inland again, and it goes right down here. Right down here, and it runs the coast of California until it gets to the San Francisco Bay area. Then it goes just barely out to sea at the entrance to the San Francisco Bay. Then it continues south, past San Francisco Bay, where we have another earthquake today. This is Loyola, California. This is a 0.8 microquake as well. The San Andreas Fault continues south just east of Monterey Bay here. Monterey Bay is right there. East of the San Andreas Fault, guys, we have Gilroy, California. Gilroy, California is known for 5.0, 5.6 earthquakes here. They've had them here in the past. I lived in California when Gilroy was hit one time. Gilroy, California is on the Hayward Fault, one of the most dangerous faults in California. Someone earlier today said that we have three parallel earthquake faults. We have a lot more than that. We have three right here in Northern California. We have the San Andreas, we got the Hayward, and we have the Calaveras just east of the Hayward. Okay, there you can see the Calaveras Fault better lit up here on the red line here. Where it comes together with the Calaveras Fault, and I'm talking with the Hayward Fault and the Calaveras Fault come together just south of here, is one of the most dangerous areas of California. Where the three faults come together is one of the most dangerous areas of California, around Allen, California. This earthquake here is near New Idra, California. It's a 1.7 tremor here. That is one heck of a dangerous area here. Okay? Then the San Andreas continues south. This whole area here, you see it. You see it here. Then it goes a little bit further inland where it connects with a garlock fault. And you can see the garlock fault running inland. Where does the garlock fault go? Up to Ridgecrest, California, and Trona, California, where 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, almost 4 years ago now, we had 3 major earthquakes here. 3 major earthquakes. The first 2, they said, were 6.9 earthquakes. They may have been even larger than that. We had 2 6.9 earthquakes here. USGS took one of them off. They were 2 separate and distinct earthquakes in 2 separate distinct areas. I had the longitude and latitude of them. I still do. They took that one down and left one of them up and downgraded it to a 6.4. How stupid do they think we are? The next day, July 5th, we had a 7.1 earthquake with major damage north of Ridgecrest over in Trona, California. It killed only a handful of people because of the desert area that it was in, and that's the only reason it didn't kill more people. Prior to that earthquake, at the northeastern end of the Garlock Fault, there were thousands of earthquakes prior to that. Tens of thousands of earthquakes prior to that happening. Those earthquakes went north of the Garlock Fault up here. They went north of there. They also went south all the way down here to San Diego County. The Anza Gap area just east of Los Angeles, going from San Bernardino County to San Diego County. Tens of thousands of earthquakes hit this entire area, and the USGS, in their infinite wisdom, only showed a handful of them, maybe 20 or 30 earthquakes when there were tens of thousands of them. You can see the earthquakes here in Southern California, just east and south of Los Angeles. For example, this one. This one's in Devore. It's a 0.8 microquake in Devore, California. Devore's had 5.0s as well. Right here, this is Fontana. I showed you several days ago. A seismogram from Fontana, California. Guess what, folks? We had more than just a 1.6 tremor in Fontana. More like 2.5, 3.0 earthquakes in Fontana. I showed you proof of that. Just south and east of there, Muscoe, California, a 1.2 tremor. South of that, this is on the San Andreas Fault, guys. Those other 3 earthquakes also on the San Andreas Fault area. Guess what? This one is. This is a 1.4 tremor on the Yucaipa, California area. In Yucaipa. Almost straight west. This is a quarry blast. Yes, there's a quarry blast in Home Gardens, California. There's a few quarries out here. Okay? Most of these quarries are far west of there. Look at that. They say this is a quarry blast as well. Let me show you this. This is 0.8 tremor here. A 0.8 tremor. You tell me what's happening. This is not a frickin' quarry blast, USGS. How many times do I have to show this to the public? There is no quarry blast here. This is a residential area. I've shown you the same thing going on in Washington. I've shown it going on in Oregon. I've showed it all over California. USGS saying there's a quarry blast in a residential area. I call BS. Again. I call BS again. This is 0.8 microquake out here in Home Gardens, California, in a residential area. You see it. Yes, there are quarries just west of here, just like I showed you a few minutes ago, right over here. But that was not a quarry blast in a residential area. How many times do I have to prove USBS wrong? USBS. Do I have to spell it out? Aubrey's saying her smoke alarm just went off doing cooking. Are you even prepared for a kitchen fire, guys? That was Home Gardens, California. Look at the earthquakes east of there. This is Yucaipa, like I showed you, a 1.4 tremor. Southwest of there, this is a tremor, a 1.0 tremor in Temecula, California, just north of San Diego. A 1.4 tremor in a residential area. I have been in Temecula. Heck, I almost bought property in Temecula some 30 or 40 years ago. I probably should have. It was selling for $100 an acre, and I should have done it. A 1.0 earthquake tremor in Temecula, California, just south of there. Guess where this is, guys? And I've said this before. I've shown this area to you before. This is a 0.8 microquake near Palomar Observatory. This is north-northwest of Palomar Observatory. This is on the Elsinore fault zone. You can see the fault zone here very clearly. This, folks, is Palomar Observatory right here. It's on the Elsinore fault zone. You can see the fault zone here very, very clearly. Okay, let's go south. Let's go east. Okay, now we're over here in what they call Anza. Anza Borrego National, or not National, Anza Borrego State Park in northeast San Diego County. This is a 0.5. This is a 0.6. This quake is a 0.9. South of here, this is a 1.1 in Borrego Springs, i.e. the Anza Borrego Desert State Park in northeast San Diego County. We go south. This is a 1.1 also in Borrego Springs. Borrego Springs is on top of the Chocolate Mountains. Anybody that has seen Top Gun the movie, the original movie, you saw the pilots flying over the Chocolate Mountains over towards El Centro Naval Air Station. And there was even a segment that was filmed over here in El Centro. Let me find the air station here. Right here. There was a segment filmed right here at El Centro Naval Air Station, here in El Centro, California. Okay? This is where we get earthquakes. We've had 5s, we've had 6s over here in the Imperial Valley. This is called the Imperial Valley here. Okay? Just south of the United States. Just on the southern side of the border here. This is a 3.5 earthquake south of the border in what they call Progreso, Mexico. This is 4 miles from the border. 4 miles from the U.S. border. Now, there's another earthquake I want to talk to you about. This is in San Diego County. I have shown you this over and over and over again. Okay, they're calling this a quarry blast again. Okay, yes, there's a quarry blast north of here, right there. Folks, this is right next door to a residential area. Are they going to allow quarry blasts out here in Rancho San Diego, California? No, they're not. There are laws against it. This again was not a quarry blast, USBS, and I know they're hearing me. I know USGS is hearing me because they monitor this program. I have caught them here. Some of my mods have even taken them off the chat because they lie. They lie through the frickin' teeth. They lie through the frickin' teeth. Animals and Humans in Disaster says in the chat here, thanks, 45 years of experience, want to share before I go. No problem. I'm also certified in Animals and Humans in Disaster. That's one of my certifications. Animals and Humans in Disaster. Again, this was not a quarry blast. This was a tremor just east of San Diego Country Estates, which is right there. Okay? This whole area is San Diego Country Estates. It's populated now. This is just east of Ramona, California here. I know what I'm talking about. I have been here. I have friends that live here. A lot of friends that live here. As you can see, I get a little bit irritated with these people. Mary Shea is asking, Ron, were you in the military, sir? No, I was not. I was a federal police officer in San Diego. I left San Diego in April 2000. I left San Diego in April 2000. I patrolled San Diego Naval Air Station at San Diego Naval Station, 32nd Street. I patrolled federal housing, military housing off base. I patrolled federal buildings off base. The FBI building, Social Security offices, the ATF, the DEA in San Diego. I even went up to Los Angeles and trained police officers in LA. I trained police officers at China Lake Naval Air Station. I trained police officers at El Centro to do traffic accidents and be able to investigate traffic accidents out in El Centro. I made a DUI arrest one of the mornings that I was on my way to El Centro when a speeder went flying by me doing 100 plus miles an hour over the Chocolate Mountains. Once he got to the desert floor, he lost control of his car and spun it out in the median of the highway. He spun it out right in the median between between east and west, Highway 8 out there. Spun it out. Before I got to the desert floor, I was past, actually, this yo-yo that we chased out of the Chocolate Mountains. I was flying after this guy, red lights and siren, and a CHP officer that was pulled off of Interstate 8 at the top of the Chocolate Mountains. He saw us and he went flying behind me and out past me and went after this guy as well. And I followed, the CHP officer was in front of me and I followed or followed him all the way down to the desert floor just west of El Centro, where this guy spun out in the middle of the highway. Both the CP officer and I thought that he was probably dead, that he might have flipped out of the car, because it spun out and all we saw was a huge dust cloud. We thought he was dead. He survived it, but he could not even stand up. Not because he was spun around. He was too drunk at 7:30 in the morning to stand up. Yet he'd been driving at 100 miles per hour or more. Yeah, we got him off the road. Anyway, guys, I don't want to go into any more of this here. I've told you what I believe is going to happen. I've shown you on the maps what I know is true. Now I want to show you or give you more information on what you need to do to be prepared. I talked about this a while back. I'm going to discuss it again. This is beginning emergency planning. This is beginning emergency planning. Folks, this is a 72-hour emergency plan for absolute beginners. Tomorrow, I'm probably going to come back on the air and talk intermediate and advanced emergency planning, because I want people to have this information, because what we know is going to happen. And all of you and more are going to be involved in it. You need to be prepared. Having an emergency plan is the beginning of preparedness. You need an emergency plan that's going to handle every scenario that you might be involved in. I don't care whether you live on the West Coast, up in the north part of west of the United States, northwest part of the United States, or Canada. I don't care whether you live in the Midwest. I don't care whether you live on the East Coast. I don't care whether you're in Canada or Britain or even Sweden or Denmark. By the way, Sweden and Norway got hit by earthquakes today. Southern Sweden and southern Norway got hit today. Ding, 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 ding. Earthquakes hit everywhere. Europe got hit. Turkey got hit by over 100 earthquakes today. Turkey, again. Why? Because they had 9.0 to 10.0 earthquakes there just a few weeks ago. Just a matter of weeks ago, they had a 9.0 to a 10.0 magnitude earthquake decimate that area, and they're still having aftershocks today. Over a month later, 100 plus aftershocks today. That's what we're talking about. On this program, folks, we've talked about floods, we've talked about fires, we've talked about earthquakes, we've talked about winter storms, we've talked about tornadoes, we've talked about fires, we have talked about active shooters. I don't care what emergency you might be faced with. You're going to face an emergency in your lifetime. You need to be prepared, and the starting of that is writing an emergency preparedness plan. Think about any kind of emergency you're going to be involved with, and you need to have a plan to address every factor that you might be involved with. This could even be an emergency where you lose your job. Guess what, folks? There are companies that are closing their doors even right now, laying off tens of thousands of people. Grocery stores, department stores closing their doors. Amazon is about to close its doors. Yes, Amazon. Mr. Bezos is just about to close the doors on Amazon. That's considered an emergency for those people. You need to have a plan to address every emergency that you're going to confront, including unemployment. What I'm going to talk about briefly tonight is a 72-hour emergency plan for absolute beginners. Everybody has to start someplace. Tomorrow evening I'm going to go back on the air and we're going to talk about advanced emergency planning. I have written over about 110, I believe it's 110 different emergency plans for businesses, families, neighborhoods, and churches in the past 30 years. I've written emergency plans. I know what I'm talking about. The first thing you need to worry about is having the basics down. Understanding the basics and making sure you have it down to survive at least 72 hours. The first 72 hours is critical. After that, it gets to be more advanced. Let me tell you this. FEMA used to say you needed at least 72 hours worth of food and planning to get through the first 72 hours of a disaster. Now they're saying you need at least 3 months worth of emergency plans and food and water, because first responders are not going to be able to get to you for a very long time after a major disaster. You need to be able to take care of yourselves. And now FEMA is even saying much longer than 3 months. I'm telling you right now, I have 6 months worth of food and water in my home right now, and I'm asking everybody to start getting that themselves. You need at least 6 months worth of food and water and other things together to survive. And after you get to 6 months, don't stop. Make sure you get to 1 year and beyond. Make sure you can get to 1 year and beyond. Tonight, the first thing I'm going to talk about, most small-scale disasters don't last longer than 72 hours to a week. So it makes sense to take care of this first. To successfully pass this preparedness for beginners, level 1, you're going to need a do-it-yourself bug-out bag. You're going to need a do-it-yourself bug-out bag, a BOB for short. You're going to need a do-it-yourself first aid kit, a first aid kit with Band-Aids, bandages, surgical tape, some scissors, some good sharp scissors. You're going to need gauze of all kinds. You're going to need some triangular bandages, and I'm going to go into this in more detail in first aid. Yes, I'm going to give you a basic first aid class online. I used to teach this as well. You need a do-it-yourself first aid kit. Next, and probably one of the most important things, a bug-out location. I've talked about this a lot. Not just one bug-out location. You need to have at least 2 or 3 bug-out locations. Why am I saying 2 or 3? If you have only one, what happens when it gets filled up and you can't get in? You're going to find yourself stranded with no place to go. You need to plan for at least 2 or 3 different bug-out locations. If you can't stay in your house, where are you going to go? You also need to have at least 3 evacuation routes. So you're going to need to get some maps. And on your maps, you need to get, like example, an orange marker like this. And put your bug-out location route on the map in a light-colored magic marker. A light-colored magic marker or a colored pen like this. At least you'll be able to see the roads that you're going to traverse during your bug out, during your evacuation. 3 bug out routes. And you not just need to plan it, you need to drive those routes. You need to drive those routes before your emergency. That way you know, 1, that they're going to be safe, 2, you're going to be able to know how to get to where you're going to go, and 3, guess what? You need to have the education to get there. You need to become familiar with the route and the different routes to each of your locations. And yes, the routes to one location might be applicable to the next. But you need at least 3 routes and 3 different bug out locations. We've talked about sheltering in before. That is an option if you can stay in your home, or you can bug out to the backyard of your home. But if you can't stay there, you need to have a bug out location and 3 routes to get there, to each location. Now, in order to get to a bug out location, you need a bug out vehicle. How are you going to get to the bug out location without a vehicle? We've talked about this before too. You need to have a vehicle that is roadworthy. You need to have a vehicle that's going to work. You need to have a vehicle that you keep maintenance on, that it's not going to break down in an emergency. You need to have an emergency kit for that vehicle. Tools, possibly a spare battery, possibly jumper cables, extra oil for your vehicle. You need blankets in case you get stranded someplace. You need to have water. You need to have food in that vehicle to survive. You need to have tools for your car in case it breaks down so you can fix it. You need to be able to change a tire. You need to have a spare tire and the tools to change your tire, and even to pump it up again once you fixed with a new spare. You need to keep the spare fully filled as well. Okay? You need a bug out vehicle that's safe. Make sure it's safe immediately. Okay? Now, in addition to that, Hurricane Heather says make sure the items that are in your bag are multi-purposes. I agree. Highway Runner says trucking companies have folded. There have been many trucking companies that have folded, gone out of business. And that's another complete program by itself. I talked about that earlier last year. Don Patoka says the 4 pillars of preparedness are people, provisions, protection, and productivity. People, provisions, protection, and productivity. Absolutely right. Now, Wolfman says, I'm already bugged out, but if I have to bug out again, I'm going to Don's house. Oh, you ought to know where Don lives. I've been there. I love Don. I'd do anything for Don. Don's my buddy, my pal. Okay? Anyway, you need that bug out vehicle. You need to plan for it. You need to make sure it's going to run for you for an emergency. You also need a full tank of gas. I'm going to tell you right now, considering everything that I've already discussed, you need to have a full tank of gas always, all the time. Keep your tank topped off. Guess what? In the past 2 days since I filled up with gas prices have risen over 20 cents a gallon where I live. Risen over 20 cents a gallon in less than 2 days. Keep your tanks full, because if you keep your tanks full, you're not going to have to pay the higher prices unless it's absolutely necessary. Keep your tanks full. You never know when this bug out's going to have to happen. Now, you need a few basic survival skills. And you need a few specialized things that you need to worry about. Urban scenarios if you live in the city. You need to think about urban scenarios such as bugging out in an urban area. You need general physical preparation, meaning you need to be a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, and more flexible. And you need to have more stamina. Nothing too fancy, but you just need to get a little bit into shape. You need to get a little bit into shape. At least a couple other ways to start a fire. A lot of us have started many fires in our lives, bigger and smaller ones. You need a couple ways to start a fire. Think about this. Bic lighters. Bic lighters. I've got them in my drawer of my desk. I've got more in my bug out bag here. Excuse me. And I've got more in my emergency survival kit over here as well. Bic lighters, magnesium fire starters, steel wool, and a 9-volt battery, waterproof matches, and I'm going to add something to this. I'm going to say dryer lint. I've got several sandwich baggies full of dryer lint. That is one of the fastest things that will burn, and it'll burn hot and it'll burn clean. It won't produce a lot of smoke, but it'll burn hot and it'll burn clean, and it will provide you with the basics for a fire. You need to know how to make kindling, small kindling that will burn to start a larger fire. Okay? You need at least one way to filter water, such as a life straw. I've also got to the point where I've gotten this water bottle. I can put dirty water into this. I can put stream or creek water into this. Okay? Then I just pop this thing open like this. And that filter that I just put in this thing, this filter here is good for 500 gallons of water. 500 gallons of water. This here, right here. Okay? Think about getting something at least like this. If not, other kinds of filters such as a life straw will be your salvation. You can't live very long without water. No more than 3 days without water, and you're not going to think clearly. You might be dead. You need at least a couple ways to light your way, such as hand crank flashlights. And I've talked to you about all of my flashlights in the past, including this Halo XT flashlight from 4 Patriots. This is a Halo XT flashlight from 4 Patriots. Okay? I've talked about this before. I have many different kinds of flashlights here. I've got a lot of them. And I've got spare batteries. I just bought more spare batteries yesterday. Okay? Multi-purpose survival items such as duct tape. Military spec paracord. I have over 1,700 feet of paracord. What is it? It's parachute rope. That's what it is. Parachute rope. It's strong and durable. It won't break unless it's worn out. And if it's worn out, go get some more. It's dirt cheap. It's relatively cheap to get. Military spec 550 paracord. You need to have some baking soda. Have 2 or 3 or 4 boxes of baking soda. It's also dirt cheap. You also need some bleach. At least 1 or 2 gallons of bleach. You need an emergency thermal blanket. 1 per person. Think about one-way and two-way emergency communications. I've spoken about this in the past. You need to be the first to know when things go bad, and you need ways to connect to your family, the police, and ambulances, and so on and so on and so on. At the very least, you should have an AM/FM emergency weather radio, an AM/FM emergency weather radio, and extra batteries to power that radio. You need at least one home defense NUG, N-U-G. Spell it backwards to figure out what I'm saying. You need at least one home defense NUG and several alternative NUGs or other kinds of weapons. If the law doesn't allow it, you may have to be interested in making or buying an airsoft NUG. They can be almost just as usable as any other defense weapon. And I have links to those if you need them. You need to have at least a 3-day water stockpile. At least 1 gallon per person per day, and I'm saying 3 gallons of water per person per day, minimum. You need to have a 72-hour stock of food. Consider at least 2,500 calories per person per day. At least a 72-hour stockpile of food. What did I say a few minutes ago? What do you have in your pantry? Do you have enough food in your household to get you through a week, 10 days, 3 months? Work on getting you 6 months worth of food in your household. All it takes is an extra can or package of this or a package of that every time you go to the store. You don't have to spend a ton of money right away. In some cases, if you have it, you need to think about getting it as soon as possible. Don't forget your pets. I just bought more dog food today, so my puppy dogs, my kids, have plenty of food. I've got 6 months of water for them as well. Don't forget about your pets. Now, if you have to stay in your home, if you have to shelter in place, you need to designate a safe room to hide in as a last resort. Designate a safe room to hide in as a last resort. Fortify your home against burglars and home invaders. If you guys want a class on how to fortify your home, I will happily teach that class to you and for you. Set up an early warning system on your property. Security cameras or an alarm system on your property. Alarm system stickers, and even get a dog sign. Beware of dog. Don't worry about my kids, beware of my dog. Maybe even a few surprises for a would-be bad guy. Maybe a few surprises for that would-be bad guy. So the surprises will notify you that he's coming in so you can deal with him. Again, know your bug out routes. Mark them on printed and laminated maps. Focus on those routes. Focus on the 1 or 2 or 3 routes that are less likely to get crowded when everyone else is trying to get out of the dodge. Pick routes that are surface streets. Stay away from major roadways, major highways. Anything that might have a stoplight. Anything where police or National Guard might have set up a checkpoint. Avoid those checkpoints. Use surface streets if at all possible. If at all possible. When everyone else is trying to get down a roadway, they're going to take the highway more than likely. If you take surface streets, you're probably going to avoid the checkpoints. You're going to avoid traffic jams. We've seen this happen when hurricanes blow in off the Gulf and over into Florida. Everybody's trying to get out of Dodge all at once, and they run out of gas. If you're on service streets, you're more likely to get where you want to go, where you need to go. Okay? When everyone's trying to get out of the city, use forest roads, use train tracks, etc. Get a good fixed blade survival knife. A good fixed blade survival knife. Such as one like this. I'm not going to take it out of its case, but you need to have a good fixed blade survival knife as well. At least a good folding knife. A good folding knife such as this. Now, you also need to have one of these. This is a multi-tool. This is a multi-tool. I have several of these. Okay? Now, work on communication security, what we call ComSec. Work on and worry about communication security, on how you're going to keep your communication secure. We talked about this in times past, and I'll do another communications drill if you want me to. Also worry about OPSEC, operational security, how you're going to protect yourself, what you and your family are going to do to protect yourselves. Now, as some of our people have simplified it, ComSec is about your resources. OPSEC is how you deploy those preparations. ComSec is about your resources. OPSEC is about how you deploy those preparations. Lastly, do not neglect mental preparation. Do not neglect mental preparation. You need to develop your fight or flight instinct. Develop your flight or fight instinct. You need to have that down to the letter. You need to know what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. What you're going to do and when you're going to do it. You need to have that down pat. Okay? Now, I've talked to you a little bit about planning. This is just part of it. I believe tomorrow night I'm going to come back on the air tomorrow night and talk full-blown about emergency planning. And I'm going to take one of my emergency plans down off my shelf and we'll go through it piece by piece so you get a good idea what you need to do. What you need to do. I've talked and talked and talked about this. Now we're down to an emergency coming in, and it's going to happen. I, cotton picking, very well know what's going to happen. I've been around the block a few times. I've been around the block a few times. Folks, you need to get prepared, and I'm saying get prepared immediately. Immediately, if not sooner. Some people are more prepared than others, and that's fine. If you're somewhat prepared, get prepared even more. Store more food, store more water, store more blankets and other emergency supplies. Talk to your family, talk to your kids about this. Even your kids can be able to understand a lot of things. You don't have to go into emergency details necessarily. But even get your kids involved with the planning. Erect a tent in your family room. Push the furniture over to the side and put a tent in your family room and invite your kids and your pets into the tent for the night. Pretend you're camping. That way your kids are used to being in the tent as well, and your pets will be as well. Keep your children and your pets occupied. There's nothing worse than having a mad pet on your hands, and they're mad at you, your kids are mad at you, your wife or spouse are mad at you, and then what are you going to do? Think about this. Think about it. What are you going to do? Think about this. Work on it, guys. This is absolutely necessary right now. Immediately, if not sooner. I've been thinking a lot about this over the years. Now we're down to brass tacks. We're down to brass tacks. I don't want to be out in a gully and not being able to cross the hill. I don't want to be down in the gully and not able to cross the hill. I want to be over the top. I want to survive. I want all of you to survive with me. That's why I'm going so out of my way to make sure you all are prepared. You are my family. You are my friends. You are my everything. And that's the truth. You can take that to the bank as well. Now, last but not least, before I leave tonight, I want to leave you with a thought. This thought is coming from my heart. I've thought about this as well. This comes from 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 13. But sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear. Let me read that again. But sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear. Think about that. That's exactly what we're talking about tonight. This is exactly what we're talking about tonight. Think everything through and be able to give a reason to every man. Be able to give a reason to every man. Our neighbors and our close friends need us. Please share this video with everyone that you see, everyone that you can even think might need it. Everybody needs to have this information that I've given you tonight. I've taken great research and great pains to point out this information tonight. This is it. These are the last days. We don't have much more time, guys. We don't have much more time. I ask the Lord to bless you, to keep you and protect you, even in the palms of His hands. May God be with you. May God bless you. May God be with you this day and always. God be with you till we meet again. We will see you tomorrow night. Good night, everyone. I love you.